I don't think I've ever done a follow-up video, but I'm going to be doing one responding to some of the criticism, some of the thoughts on my Super Bowl Kendrick video. I'm doing this for two reasons. One, this is a new music review show, but I've just been this week. I'm back at work. My kids aren't doing super well. They're not sleeping. I just didn't have time. But pay attention. I'll be reviewing that new Larry June album soon, the new Oakley album. I'll get back to my my usual rhythm. But also just, there's a lot of interesting commentary, and a lot of you have watched it. It's already my 20th most popular video. Thank you for that. And I realize a lot of people watch this and I always do videos like people know who I am and what I talk about and how I do things. And I realize that's not always a great idea. So let me just sort of outline some of the things I said and respond to some of the criticism. First of all, I started right off the bat by laying out some criticisms I would put towards Kendrick. Now, I did this for a very real reason. One, I'm accused of glazing all the time. I glaze art. I glaze greatness. If someone happens to be a great artist, I'm not going to be afraid of saying it. Enthusiasm is a weapon, and if you have it, you should use it. No, I'm not on drugs. Yes, I love art, and I love artists, and I love Kendrick, okay? But it was a rhetorical device. By starting off insulting Kendrick, my hope was people who were more against Kendrick would hear me and maybe listen to the rest of my argumentation. It was actually sort of a meta trick. So one of my theses of what he was doing was creating a Trojan horse, using this platform as a way to smuggle in more revolutionary ideas, much like the GNX itself was just a car, but then it smuggled in all those people, right? So the idea of criticizing Kendrick right off the top was a Trojan horse idea. But you might not know that. I got a ton of comments of people just being like, bro hates Kendrick, move on, which is funny. But the first thing I said was that he was cowardly for not playing all right. Some of you correctly pointed out that the word cowardly is too strong in any case because his performance was so brave in so many different ways. So first of all, I will step back on the usage of that word cowardly. My point was that the last time he played that song at the Super Bowl, a couple years ago, he did not sing "We Hate Po-Po." And I imagine that went against his wishes. I imagine that felt like a compromise. I imagine that felt like, on some level, selling out because he was censoring himself to placate the people in power. So my general theory was that's why he didn't do it. But I was wrong. So let's just say I was wrong. And that's what's interesting. And that's why I really like having back and forth. That's why I read all the comments, because you are often more correct than I am. I said that he repeated other songs, and I was wrong. He actually only played All Right and one song off of Good Kid, Mad City when he went on with Dre. So there were no overlaps. So that's the first reason why he wouldn't play it. Why play the same song at two separate Super Bowls? And then the other thing is, some people were saying it's because now we're not all right, and he doesn't want to give us a comforting anthem. I personally feel like that's misunderstanding the song All Right, because I imagine that the song All Right is an anthem, and again, I believe it is written for and by Black Americans, so there's a degree to which I cannot understand it. I can only abstractly appreciate it as an outsider, not as somebody who is living the experience that is being described. It is an anthem that is not for me, but I would say, well, now it's bad, and then it wasn't. Now it's so much worse that the anthem doesn't work. To me, that logic doesn't quite work, because I feel like the worse it is, the more you need an uplifting anthem. But he gave us one, or he gave the world one, or he gave them one. He gave us one. We'll talk about who us is later. With Not Like Us. So you don't need two anthems. He wrote a generational anthem a decade ago, and now he wrote another one. And in the end, the whole point is that he is doing what he wants to do, and it's an act of resistance. It's an act of resistance to not play your biggest hits in the biggest platform. The fact that he structured it around what is expected of him is so important. If you haven't seen FD Signifier's video about this, I suggest watching it. He talks about how happy he is that it was not more overtly political, because as he discusses, it would be likely to be what is called recuperated. Now, recuperation was a process that's described by a French philosopher named Guy Debord, who ironically has been recuperated by the French intelligentsia. But the idea is this. Like there's some kind of radical idea, some kind of revolutionary idea, and it ends up being co-opted, taken by systems of power, either taken by the government or taken by a corporation, taken by the media, and twisted and deformed until it becomes a part of the power system it was seeking to undermine. Okay? That's what recuperation is. It's recuperated. So by not, I don't know, raising up a fist, by not screaming Black Lives Matter down with Trump, he was allowing it to not be recuperated by giving a complex message that was open to interpretation, that invited interpretation, that is inviting an orgy of interpretations from new rock stars to every single music commentator to me doing a second video on it. Like, he allowed so much space for interpretation. You know where he comes from. You know who he fights for. You know how he fights. You know how serious he is, to the point where you do the work. He doesn't have to say, this is Black Revolution. He just is Black Revolution, and then we observe it, which also makes it high five, I'm bulletproof. It makes him bulletproof, because what can they say? They can't say, it was inappropriate to take a knee on the flag. They can't say anything. All they can basically say is, how dare he be black in the public space? That's the criticism. So anyways, I agree with FD. I think it's a fascinating move, not playing the hits, not being super revolutionary. You know, Charlemagne the God, who I said doesn't deserve all the smoke. A lot of you tell me in the comments that he does. Explain in the comments, why does he deserve all the smoke? I am genuinely curious. He went on the Breakfast Club this morning and talked about how if he just played Blacker the Berry, that would have been the real knockout punch to Trump, and that would have been the real moment. You know, and he's not wrong. That would have been the moment. That would have been the crystallizing moment. That would have been it. But he didn't. And in a way, it's perhaps better that he didn't. Now, next issue of my video. When I think that the audience is with me, which they usually are in most of my videos, I can speak with sarcasm, irony, and I can be facetious. Now, I said some things during the video, and I said I'm being facetious. I am not being facetious when I say maybe not everybody knows what the word facetious means. I mean, like, I didn't know what it meant till I went to grad school, so what? I learned what facetious meant when I was 31, and I'm 47 now, so I've spent less than half of my life knowing what the word means, okay? So I should just throw it out there, okay? So facetious is when you treat something seriously with sort of humor, inappropriate humor. Being flippant. So I was being very flippant in the beginning when I said it should have been Lil Wayne. I never actually meant it should be Lil Wayne. I meant it should be Lil Wayne because his performance would have been bad enough to be worthy of the Super Bowl, thereby implying that what Kendrick did was so good, was so far outside the boundary of what we understand the Super Bowl to be, that it shouldn't have been done. It was literally too good. I was praising him for his innovation, and I was, I believe, correctly observing that Lil Wayne would have just done a perfectly fine, by the numbers, moving, nice, wonderful halftime show. I'm sort of reminded of Last Culture United that I did, where Friday Ricky Dredd, who defends Drake from time to time there, very difficult position, check out his We Love Hip Hop network, he was making the argument that Drake's music has been bad lately to hurt the record label. Like, when he said that, I was like, are you being facetious? Is that a joke? Are you laughing at how bad Drake is? I'm sort of making a similar point, but just meaning it seriously. That, like, Lil Wayne would have given a typical Super Bowl performance that would have been enjoyed, but ultimately forgotten. Much like most of them. Okay, only very few Super Bowl performances are remembered or talked about afterwards. Janet Jackson. The reason that you are here is that the person who created YouTube was mad that he had nowhere to post videos of rhinoceroses' penises or elephants' penises, and also that there was no one place to see Janet Jackson's boob after the Super Bowl. So he created YouTube. So, you know, like, we still talk about that. We still talk about Michael Jackson, and we still talk about Prince, but in general, they just kind of come and go. The most facetious comment I made was I was being satirical when I said, Kendrick, you have to smile. Okay? I was being facetious because I think it was great that Kendrick was not smiling. I think that was an act of resistance. And I was putting on the character of the kind of person who would tell him to be acting like a figure skater. Like, it is true that you have to smile in that place. And it is an important act of resistance not to. And people are often told to smile by people in power, by people with a systemic advantage, right? Women are told to smile all the time, right? I didn't believe it was true until I asked women that I know, like, yeah, men tell me to smile all the time. God. Anyways. So I was totally joking. I was totally on Kendrick's side, but I was speaking facetiously, so it came across that way. Finally, we have the great Last Jedi debate. So I said people who don't like The Last Jedi voted for Trump, love Drake, and hate the halftime show, to which many of you correctly pushed back on. Okay, so let me first of all discuss. I wasn't farming for you'd think, talking about Kendrick, Drake, and Trump, that would be getting the most engagement. No. The most engagement you get is on Last Jedi. But listen, Last Jedi fits into the culture war. And whether or not you like it, when you fight against The Last Jedi, you are fighting alongside the people on the culture war who are pro-Trump, who are anti-vax. Like, there's a whole constellation of beliefs. And the belief that video games need to have female characters in their underwear is the same, like that Venn diagram. Everybody who believes that women need to be in their underwear in video games hates The Last Jedi. So I'm not saying that everybody who hates The Last Jedi is conservative, but it is a part of the conservative culture war. And I know because I'm a super big Star Wars nerd. I've been to 6 Star Wars conventions. Okay? That's a lot. The guy who played Chewbacca before he died, he cut my hair for Locks of Love. True story. Look it up on the internet. So I remember 2016. I remember the election of Trump, and I remember Last Jedi coming out, and I remember how close it felt, how much it felt like it was the same energy, the same kind of feeling. And just going back to the point, because Justin Hunt is the one who made this original point, the company man, follow him on everything. If you don't, punch yourself in the face. He's the one who drew this comparison, and I wanted to go further with it because I was so engaged in this debate, in this huge debate at the time about the value of the movie. And it's fundamentally anti-nostalgia. Kendrick performed in a nostalgia location without nostalgia. Last Jedi is a Disney Star Wars movie which is founded on nostalgia and was made without nostalgia. And so when people said, that's not my Luke Skywalker, what they were saying was, my Luke Skywalker is the one I played with when I played with my action figures, and they went pew, pew, and they went pew, pew, and then he showed up, and he was all like, hi, and aren't you a little short for a stormtrooper? And he's all like, I'm Luke Skywalker, I'm here to rescue you. You know, like, that's what they want. That's their Luke Skywalker. But what made Rian Johnson great in what he did, or at least interesting, was that he broke that. And listen, maybe you don't think it's a good movie for other reasons. Okay, fine. But you just have to know that that's the side. Those are the people who agree with you. That, okay? And also, what, failure is the best teacher? That's not a good lesson? That's not meaningful? Failure is the best teacher? That's not one of the best lessons you can get from a mainstream movie? Failure is the best teacher. You have to learn from failure. That's the message of The Last Jedi. You have to learn from failure. And everyone's like, he's failing too much. I want him to be perfect and have big muscles and fight and kill the Rancor monster with the bone. Anyways. So Force Awakens is what happens when nostalgia works, right? It's a fine movie. And Rise of Skywalker is what happens when you're so confused you don't know what you're going to do. When you get so lost in whether or not you're supposed to be serving a new idea or an old idea that you come up with essentially no ideas. Although, hey, it is against biological determinism. Rey Skywalker is a great line. But in the end, what really matters is focusing on what the artist wants, not the consumer. Okay? And some of you said, Sky, all the Disney Star Wars sucks. And To that I say, oh, that's a totally fair argument. The prequels are the second best set of movies made by Star Wars. They're real Star Wars. Disney Star Wars is not even real Star Wars to me. It's just like other movies that are called Star Wars. Episodes 1, 2, and 3 are a whole nother level because they're made by the actual artist, not by the, and I'm quoting George Lucas, white slavers of Disney. Dude got a check for $4 billion, turned around and called them white slavers. Now, the term white slavers is problematic. And George Lucas, interesting guy. So anyways, it's all about the value and the power of the artist. Some of you took issue with me calling Donald Trump a white supremacist and wanted me to explain. It's going to be hard for me to describe that in a video that I'm trying to keep to under 3.5 hours, but I'll just say this. Dog whistles are real. When people refer to dog whistles, they are not making something up. Just because you can't hear them does not mean they are not there. They are made to be heard by two different groups of people. One, the people with whom they agree, and two, the people who will be the victim. So when someone tells you something is a dog whistle, don't tell them, that's not a dog whistle. Tell them, okay, what does it sound like? What does it sound like? What is it saying? If you hear a dog whistle and you hear black people are not humans when someone says something, and he says, no, he didn't say that. I know he didn't say that, but that's what I heard in that dog whistle. You have to take them seriously. Or go find a racist. Ask them what they heard. They'll say the same thing. If you're in that nice, comfortable middle and everything seems normal to you, it just means you're not paying attention. So I can't go over all the dog whistles here. The fact that he called for the death penalty of 5 innocent black and brown kids in the Central Park 5. I can't really address the fact that his main advisor, Stephen Miller, who supports the Great Replacement Theory, which is literally the theory that's led to many murders over the years, including a lot of the Holocaust, okay? I'm not going to talk about how he won't denounce the Proud Boys, who are an outright white supremacist organization. I will not talk about how he got sued in the 70s for not renting out to black people. I will not talk about how he referred to Mexicans as a whole as rapists. I will not talk about the general rhetoric against immigration and how that plays into the general functioning of white supremacy, in particular dehumanization, and talking about things like pure blood and tainted blood. I won't talk about pardoning a sheriff who was thrown in jail because he racially profiled so bad. I won't talk about the dehumanizing of people saying that they eat dogs when they don't, trying to dehumanize them all the time. I won't talk about the birth certificate. I won't talk about how the first black president, he asked for the birth certificate. I won't talk about his whole crusade against diversity, his crusade against equity, and his crusade against inclusion. Don't say those letters together. Don't use the acronym, you cowards. Use the words. Say, I'm against inclusion, I'm against equity, and I'm against diversity. I want to hear you say the whole sentence. Next time someone says, oh, I don't like this, you say the whole thing. You own that. You carry that with you. That's what those words mean. I'm not going to talk about how Trump does that, though. I'm not talking about how he's going to discredit, how he's working as hard as he can to discrediting white people as being not worthy. I'm not going to talk about the fact that we need to understand that for many of us, our grandparents could buy houses when our black friends' grandparents could not. They were literally not allowed to. When does history start? Because Make America Great Again is about resetting history to a time before what? Before the Civil Rights Movement. That's what they're looking for. Okay? I'm not even going to talk about how he blamed a plane crash, which, by the way, is actually the fault of a messed up air traffic control system, which was because Ronald Reagan fired them all in like 1980. So I'm not going to talk about any of that stuff. I'm just going to send you to a link to Amnesty International, okay, where they will outline everything he has done that is white supremacist just since being elected. Quote, shortly after the inauguration, Trump issued a series of executive orders that on the surface may not openly invoke the tenets of white supremacy, parentheses, a belief in and system of white racial superiority, but the resulting impacts are deeply rooted in white supremacist ideologies. I will include a link in the description. Have a read. Do your own research. And again, real research is looking to discredit what you believe. That's what research is. It's not supporting what you already think. It's looking for what you don't believe. Some Chiefs fans were mad that I was dumping on the Chiefs and that I have the audacity to be a Patriots fan. That was me being kind of facetious again. Brady is way worse than Mahomes as far as being a conservative shill. I know that. The Patriots were way more of an evil empire than the Chiefs are. And the reason that I mentioned that I was a Patriots fan is to acknowledge that. Like, sports fans, you have weird beliefs, you know? My favorite sports team right now is l'Olympique de Marseille, and our top goal scorer is a guy named Mason Greenwood. Not great. Not a great record on that guy, okay? Sports makes us do silly things. So, I mean, I do think it was clear that in the lead up to this game, the Chiefs were aligning with Trump and Trump was aligning with the Chiefs, just as he would have for the Patriots, just as he would have for the Dallas Cowboys in the 90s. You know, he's always going to root for the overdog, okay? He wants the Ubermensch, he wants the overdog, he wants all of that. So, anyways, so maybe Mahomes is a nice guy. I don't know. While talking about football, I mentioned the Super Bowl where the Patriots beat the Eagles. I meant the one where they beat the Seahawks. I said Pete Carroll, who was the coach, but it was just verbal diarrhea there. And I want to take one more second there to really focus on the great thing about that Super Bowl. Because as a Patriots fan, a.k.a. part of the evil empire, I wanted the Patriots to win. But it would have been better if the Seahawks won, because that had Marshawn Lynch's famous press conference. I think Kendrick's performance was a semi-continuation of Marshawn Lynch's famous press conference. If you don't remember, he sat up there and for 5 straight minutes answered every single question with, "I'm just here so I don't get fined. I'm just here so I don't get fined. I'm just here so I don't get fined." He was acting as a resistant. Now listen, it wasn't necessarily immediately racialized because it's not like only black players have to do press conferences, but it was him making a Bartleby-esque. If you've never read the story Bartleby by Herman Melville, it's a short story. I insist that you read it. It's easy to find on the internet. It's a great story all about resisting work. Like, he was resisting, and because he was a strong, very visible black man, it was a racially coded action, a racially coded response. It created this whole hubbub that, like many things, unveiled cracks and allowed people to just start spilling out these little racist dog whistles everywhere. "I'm just here so I don't get fined" is like one of the defining moments of human resistance. Not just black resistance, but human resistance to our corporate overlords. Just absolutely beautiful. and there was a degree to which what Kendrick did when he didn't play All Right and didn't play Money Trees was, "I'm just here so I don't get fined." Now, of course, Marshawn was recuperated and did a Skittles commercial playing off on that, okay? That's recuperation in action. Okay? It's so sad. And then some people didn't like that I said that I think that the us and not like us refers to black Americans and not white Americans who are allies as well. I do propose a multifaceted reading of they and the us, and I think we will see that they and us, they not like us, will exist in perpetuity as a rallying call of solidarity. We might end up like, I don't know, Estonians like going against their government, playing this song and having the difference be like Estonians who want a more democratic representation versus those who want a more autocratic representation. I mean, the term itself, it is so amorphous that they and us can literally be any group, any resistance group against any domination in any dominant group. Okay? So like the empire can't be us with the rebels being they. Right? But the rebels can be they. I mean, the rebels can be us, right? So, anyways, I personally think that it, the definition I give of hip-hop is the one that I give, and everyone's allowed to have their own. It's that it serves 2 functions. One, it is a black American art form made for and by black Americans to describe their experience, right? 2, it is a tool created by black Americans that the rest of the world can use to be a voice of the voiceless. The song Not Like Us, the term Not Like Us, fulfills that same 2-part function. It is a song for and by black Americans to describe their experience, and it is a tool created by black Americans that other people can use. I wasn't even planning on it. That's a great conclusion, Sky. All right. Turn off all the trash compactors on the detention level. Turn off all the trash compactors in the detention level.